Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Often Wrong. We are here with episode 14. If you have been listening, we talked about revolutions. We talked about breakdowns. And now we're talking about what happens next. So let's lock in, ready for the next episode of Often Wrong. All right. Hi, people. Welcome back to Often Wrong. We are here with episode 14, and we are officially sort of out of our breakdown period. So if you remember last episode, it was just me doing a mini episode about how breakdowns can be messengers and not the end of your life, and how your crash out is so valid. And you know what? I stand by that. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what comes after the breakdown, because honestly, Claire and I were realizing we haven't heard a lot of conversations about that. And this seems like a great place to do it. What happens after you have this little messy time? Does it look like a gorgeous Instagram revenge photo? Or is it more like this meaningful work of reimagining what comes next? I think it's maybe both, actually. But first, before we get into this new episode, I have to know, Claire, what did you think about my solo episode?
Well, I thought it was really cute. And I found myself just feeling like I was on a phone call with you, just listening to you, which is it kind of like our podcast feels like that anyways, because our phone calls are very similar to this. Definitely. But I loved it. And I thought, there were a few things that you said that I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because at the time of you recording, we had both been kind of going through it, and then stuff got even crazier afterwards. So it was definitely well timed, because it just, I don't know, it made me feel like, wow, okay, what I'm doing is generative, and it, for the vast majority of my growing pains that I've just been through, it did not feel that way, and it felt like it would never end, and I couldn't see outside of it. But I think that was a really nice thing to listen to, and to go, oh wow, I'm not alone. This is nice. Other people are, experiencing this, and it's going to be something that I look back on and I'm like, wow, okay, that made me who I am, and it made me better. And
I'm so glad to hear that. It was just really interesting, because I've been having like a slow moving crash out for a couple months, but it was like kind of concluding. And the whole time I was like, oh, this is really important. I know that whatever's happening is not fun, but it's going to be worth something. But then we had our planned break for the pod, which was perfect timing, because basically everyone around me jumped off a cliff emotionally at that time. So I don't know, it just felt timely, and it felt good, and it felt good to say out loud. So I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah. And, I think the one thing that I disagreed with was, the one thing I disagreed with was when you were talking about rest and how needed to pull back. I will say none of this has felt like rest. None of it.
Oh yeah. No,
none of it has felt like rest. There's not been a second of this where I'm like, I'm rested. I have been so like, I have found myself like, I'm in that moment where it's like, I just want to sleep because I don't want to be awake. And, I'm moving through that now, and I'm thankfully, thank God, in a better place, a new place. But even sleep wasn't restful. I would wake up miserable, and, it was, none of it felt restful. And now I'm finding myself, as I'm back into things and back in the swing of things, now I'm having to actually carve out space for rest. And, to me, that looks like doing like yoga nidra once a day, like, 10, 20, 30 minutes. Just when, if anyone's not familiar with yoga nidra, it's like you just kind of lay down and like do like a body scan, but you can't fall asleep, and it's like intentional rest, and I actually feel a lot more rested afterwards. But it's not because I'm also not a napper, and napping just makes me feel like I just like fell into a vortex and then I was just rudely woken up and then I have to remain awake. Like if I'm sleeping, I want to fucking sleep, you know, I want to just get through the night. But yeah, so that's been helpful, but now I'm finding that now is the time that I actually have to carve out space for rest, that I'm like through
I
it.
think that's super real. Well, also, it's two things. Like, one, what does rest mean to you? It doesn't always mean laying down and being silent. But then
Yeah.
also, I think I more so was meaning take a rest, as in you're in the middle of this like very difficult time.
Yeah.
You don't need to power through it.
Yeah.
You can just rest in the pain, which doesn't sound restful because it
Yeah.
isn't. But it is also like you don't need to push past it. You can just be with it.
And I wonder if there's a better word than rest, because
Yeah.
like it's honestly, this is silly, but arrested makes me like arresting, you know, that activity, like arrested from, I actually don't really know how to use that word, but like, I don't know how to use that word in this context.
That's
but you know what I
interesting.
mean? Like, like arrested development is what I'm trying to say, but like arrested productivity, you know, like arrested, like, you know, stopping what is happening there and not having to push through.
That's interesting. Let's look into those root words later.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
But we do need to talk about what comes next, which I feel like, I don't know, even if we're still, you know, in the middle of some stuff, that is what life is, I think, at this point. But from one certified crash out to another, I'm sure we have been through this many, many times. And yeah, I just am interested in talking about what happens after that, this little part. But before we do, don't forget, we are getting ready for our next What We Got Wrong episode, which will come out next week. So don't forget to leave your comments on whatever platform you're listening on, or on our Instagram at often wrong pod, or at carrotimpact.com/often wrong. And we can respond to any of your takes. I want to hear about your crash outs, your theories. What did we say wrong in the last 5 episodes or the whole season so far? We're open. And yeah, we're excited to revisit some of the things that we've said now that we're on the other side of whatever the hell that was.
Yeah. Rage, cancel culture, binaries. Were those our 3 last ones? Yeah, or 4. We had another one. But I'm excited for people's takes on that.
Me too.
I think that'll be good. I'm looking at my nails on the screen right now, and it's really, really sad to me that during our break and while we have not been recording, I fully grew out my nails and had the most beautiful, gorgeous, long, natural nails. And then, as you know, I broke one in half and I had to trim them all back. And so it makes me sad that the one public facing thing that I do, which is being on this podcast, missed my nail glow up. And
that's okay. You know
now
what?
I'm back
Johnny
to
is
stubby
trying to
little.
emerge again, and that's okay.
Johnny, I can't fight him. He's here and he's a part of
He's
me.
got something to say.
He's growing stronger every day. I'm trying to beat him down.
Okay. So, in the last episode, we named the breakdown for what I think that it is right now, which is a messenger. Yeah, it seems like a truth teller, an interruption that refuses to let you lie to yourself or other people anymore. But today we're going to talk about the next chapter, what comes after this big unraveling, what happens when you're all cried out and you don't know what to do next. Because yeah, no one really talks about this part. It's kind of boring. It is anticlimactic. Maybe you're just like, oh, that was embarrassing. I wish I hadn't done that. But no, I stand firm on what I said last time, which is you were right to do it. Say it louder, do more.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've all seen, like, I also think about this, you know, as always with this podcast, we're talking about a larger thing that also you can see individually inside yourself. So if we're going to think on like big picture, we've all seen those like photo perfect moments of, you know, the bridge protest, 1 million people on the streets, the first brick that got thrown at Stonewall. But rarely do we spend as much time talking about what happens after that breakdown, protest, kind of display of like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because I have a lot to say about personal revolutions. Obviously, you could tell from our revolutions episode that I have a lot to say about public revolutions as well, but how much they all have in common and how important it is to like think through every step of the way, and like the dramatic flashy moment isn't the most important one. All of it's important.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love talking about that.
I'm curious if you have an example of a crash out, a breakdown of something in your life that you can bring into the conversation that you can point to at that point.
I actually have a perfect one. So this, I think, I don't know. Part of me wonders if they ever end, or if like, your crash out's a big question and it just answers itself for the rest of your life. Remains to be seen. I'm quite young still, regardless of what my birth certificate
We're
says.
very
And
young.
thank you.
Very young.
But I think I have been working in social justice for my entire career. It is the only thing I've ever done. Even when I've done other things like media, comms, it was all basically for social justice anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always been very important to me. And ever since I was a kid, I remember like in middle school and high school, I would find any way to turn like my project or my presentation into something about social impact. Because I, as an Aquarius, I'm here for the people all the time. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what interests me. And I don't like to see people in pain. I don't like to see suffering, especially when it's needless, which it usually is. And so I think I had this idea in my mind that like, oh, if everyone just knew, if we did advocacy properly, if everyone understood the systems at play here and the unfairness and the inequities, it will be fixed. If everyone just knew, it's just because people are busy and they just didn't realize that this was happening, or they're being lied to, which is partially true. But I think it was really in 2020, no, starting in 2016 through 2020, where the idea started blooming in my mind that I was wrong the whole time, and that it's not that simple. I don't know. I just felt like up until 2016 to 2020, I was like, okay, we are just, 54 policies away from liberation. And if I get promoted, if I work at a bigger nonprofit, if I do national work, international work, the more good I'll be able to do and the better it will be. But as I rose up the ranks and in the size of the organizations, I realized that that wasn't true. And actually, the higher you went, the more tangled in with the bad systems you were. And it crushed me. And I was really headed one way for a brick wall in 2020. And then the pandemic happened. So I really had a lot of time to like sit with myself and be like, damn, this is actually really bad.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to save the world by myself. And yeah, there's just like so many things, like understanding the way the systems were playing out just suddenly clicked in a new way. And it was very sad. There was a lot of grief about it. And it kind of like it just completely collapsed my whole worldview, and I had to rebuild it. So that's what's been happening for the past 5 years. And I feel like I'm in a much better place now. But that was a big one. And I did so many things. I moved to another country. I broke up with my girlfriend. First I moved to New York, then I moved to another country, broke up with multiple girlfriends during that time. Like there was just a lot of things I was doing. I was just like growing rapidly, changing rapidly. Nothing made sense to me anymore. Everything needed to be cut out. Some people call this a Saturn return, but yeah. So it was like a really big thing and it was really painful. But now we're in this new place that I'm really grateful for, even if it's not as easy to sit with as my childhood version of it.
Yeah.
I think like I still care about those same things like justice and truth and community. Those are like my pillars still.
Yeah.
It's just the way I was doing it and the way that I was working through it was probably gonna kill me. And it was like way too much for a person to hold, and it was impossible. Yeah. So I think there was like this way of like over functioning, which I just talked about in therapy today, and urgency and trying to be a martyr for the world. And it's just not necessary. And I really had to stop and think like, what do all my values look like if I get to have them too? If I don't have to ruin my life to save the world, which is impossible. So I think, yeah, we got to this new place where I really had to sit with it. I had to try on new things. I had to be in community with a lot of different people, and some people that I never thought that I would be in community with because I thought I had all the answers, and I didn't. And now realizing that I never will. So I don't know. This was just such a big, profound change in my life over the last 5 years. Yeah. And now looking at it, I'm like, what if advocacy for Black people, for queer liberation, for women, is just being those things in community often? What if it is talking about what matters to me? What if it's doing this podcast where we get to be often wrong and just try to talk about things and not be correct, but just try and be human beings together? And it just feels really nice. And I never would have imagined that this is the way that it was going to go, because I thought it was going to be, when I was in kindergarten, I thought I was going to be the president. And now I would never want that job. It sounds awful.
When I was
But
in
yeah, that's just my
preschool-
long-winded way of saying this was like my biggest crash out ever. And it lasted for, you could say 5 years, 5 to 9 years, depending on how you look at it.
Thank you. That was so good. And wow, I think what a beautiful example of like the personal, the political, all of it. I also will just add, when I was young, you thought you were going to be the president. I was voted most likely to be a diamond broker when I was in
see that.
preschool. Preschool.
Wow. Yeah, honestly, you do have the aura for that.
I have a picture of myself with like voted most likely to be a diamond broker, and I remember getting it and being like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I remember, well, that was the same thing, but the opposite. When I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the president. I also was obsessed with presidents when I was in kindergarten, which is hilarious considering my personality now.
Yeah.
But I had them all memorized in order. And I would say, like, I'm going to be the president. And they'd be like, okay, well, Black people aren't the president and neither are women. And I was like, these sound like personal limitations. I don't know what you're talking about. If you can't do it, I understand that, but that has nothing to do with me.
That has literally nothing to do with me. When you have kids, and if I ever have kids, I think I'm committing now to giving them superlatives every year when they're little baby children. It becomes less relevant when they get older, but I think little baby children need superlatives. I fucking love that.
Definitely.
But back to what you were saying. I think if I can pull out a theme here, and I will also add, my Saturn return starts in 2 days.
I feel like it's been started.
So me too. I asked ChatGPT about this because I was like, are you telling me that it's going to get worse? Because if it does, I'm not going to be here for it. So what?
It gets better.
But ChatGPT made a good note, and I will make a good note, that leading up to this for me has kind of been the destruction phase. And you describing all of your moves, your breakups, etc., is kind of the destruction phase of it. Now, and I feel very much that the last 6 months has been destruction for me. And now I'm entering the construction period. And
perfect timing for this episode.
Exactly. And that is what I've seen in you as well, like constructing the new, your new reality, your values, your lived experiences, how you move through the world, and, constructing, yes, the life you want to live, but also building who you are and who you've meant to become, who you're meant to become. And it's like, it's a beautiful process of becoming, and it's a very painful process. But I think there are many cases in which that destruction has to happen first. And because you can't build and construct at the same time as you're tearing stuff down, I don't think. But you are, like, that's a part of the construction process. So I'm really
also
sticking to this metaphor, but
no, it's good, because this is honestly what I want to talk about first, about how there is such like a good, if you're thinking about the revolution, personal revolution, how the rebuild is the resistance a little bit, where you are just reframing so much for yourself. And I think it might help you to know that during this rebuild process, there's probably going to be more destruction, where you're going to rebuild and be like, "Ooh, actually, fuck that, no," and you have to tear it down again. And I feel like that's why, like, coming to this place where I'm in right now, where it's like, okay, is this going to hold? Should I keep building?
I'm gonna put,
but
like,
I
a
think
book
it
on
is.
it.
Yeah.
Stable.
Yeah.
And then I'll grab like a cup, nothing breakable,
Like,
like
I
a
put a lot of
plastic
blood,
cup.
sweat, and tears in this. Like, I hope it
Yeah.
sticks. But
Yeah. Is it gonna hold?
there's that is the thing. Okay, I don't know. I was thinking about this. There's a quote that I love so much. This is that the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And I love that so much.
I
I love
love
this
that
for multiple
so
reasons. I'm going to
much.
give some layers because one, my favorite thing in the whole world is when I see a person and they are a piece of art. And you can tell whether it's like her earrings, her outfit, the way she walks, the work that she does, the way she speaks. And you're just like, oh, you have curated something fucking fabulous here.
Yes.
Even if
Yes.
it's not for me, I love that you did that. It looks so good.
Totally.
And that is the thing. That is the artist making the revolution irresistible because you're just like, that's what I want. I want when I walk down the street for it to be the way that
Yeah.
Lisa walks.
Yeah.
Lisa talks the way that Lisa talks.
Yeah.
She thinks the way she thinks. Like, and I just feel like that's so special and so intoxicating to me right
Mm.
now, where it's like, that's the only thing. And sometimes
Yeah.
that involves just like trying on different things and being like, and you say stuff out loud, or at least this is what I do and what I do on this podcast too. But you say stuff out loud and you're just like, oh no, I don't mean that. Now that I
Yeah.
heard it, no, that's not
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really beautiful. And I love that you're framing it in the context of that quote, which is so good. Who said that?
I believe it's Tony Cade Bambara.
Oh, very good. Very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're framing that in a personal way as well. Like I think we should bring that back for our follow up on revolutions or whenever we do that because um that is very much what I see art being. And I think that's so beautiful. But like how you are art, how you
Mm-hmm.
move through the world, and then you inspire other people to be their truest selves, right?
Yeah.
Like that's you want to make it irresistible to be, not them, like you were saying, not like even if it's not for me, I don't want to be somebody else. I just want to be the wholest, truest version of myself that I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is beautiful. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's something I always think. Good art makes you want to do your own thing
Yeah.
and do it better. Cause it's just like you are like this very unique, specific expression of a
Yeah.
certain time, place, experience. And that's
Yeah.
so cool. And I feel like so many things get lost in us trying to be like, oh, everything's okay. No, it's not.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Let's get
Yeah.
into it. And
It's really
also, I had
beautiful.
this one really good talk with my therapist last week, and she was like, I know that it seems like a lot of things are resurfacing for you right now, but I do want to point out how much healing you've done and that
Mm.
this is not linear, which I already knew that, but it was just nice to be validated that way from the outside. And she was saying that progress usually looks like circling back with more clarity or
Mm.
a new perspective or a new understanding. And at first it was kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to keep revisiting this painful thing forever. And then as we kept talking, I was like, oh, I'm going to keep revisiting this painful thing
Yeah.
forever. And I'm
Yeah.
going to see it in all these million different
It's going
ways.
to feel
And
differently. It's not always going to feel like it is now. It's not like I'm going to revisit this a million times in the same way. It's
mm-hmm.
it's going to change. You're going to change. Your relationship to it's going to change. Like
Right.
that's beautiful. And I love like the fact that my therapist also has had to tell me numerous times healing isn't linear. And I'm like, every time
Mm-hmm.
she says it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. I forgot. And I will give a shout out to our producer Joe, who during my challenging time has reminded me, like, on average, probably once a week, he just is like, healing's not linear. And I'm like, thank
Oh,
you. It's very sweet.
what a
Um,
good guy.
yeah, it's the one nice thing that he does for me. So, but yeah, I appreciate that because he does me dirty on the thumbnails. So for these videos, I look terrible. So I think that's his way of making it up to me. But yeah, it's so true. Healing isn't linear, and sometimes it does look like circling back. It looks like, a lot of different things. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I feel grateful to have that understanding. So, I feel like we've talked a lot about that, and I think the next, part of this healing is the construction phase. Like, what do we build now? And I'm curious, and I feel very much again like I'm still kind of in it, but I'm better than where I was, and I'm not in acute destruction or acute breakdown. Um, but I'm still, in the processing phase. Like I can't tell you all the things I've learned yet. Or I can't, I've written a lot. I've written things down. I've reflected. I feel different, but like I can't speak about it yet. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, like what your take on that is. Just, you know, okay, the destruction happened, the breakdown happened. What now? What now?
I mean, honestly, I've been thinking about this so much over the past couple of weeks specifically, just as I'm watching things happen with people around me. But I'm really starting to wonder if it ever ends. Like,
Mm,
even talking about this, I think this is kind of a neat way to talk about it, of like after the breakdown. But I can't really imagine not being in a breakdown. I don't know what that's like. I think maybe I'm getting to that point phase in my life where that starts to
mm,
happen, where things are like at stasis, but I
yeah.
have not yet been there. I think like as like a young ambitious person who likes to get into things, it's kind of never over. So I think there's just times where it feels you get used to it and it doesn't feel so like
Yeah.
breakneck. And
Yeah.
that's when some things come up. But I do think the truths that come out of it might not be apparent for a while.
Hmm.
It might feel like nothing. And I think this is just a part of like, I think it's capitalism, honestly, where you feel like, okay, I did this crazy thing. It needs to be worth something. I need to show something for it. I
Yeah.
need to have an answer. And maybe you don't. And maybe it's just valid. And you can just be like, okay, well, that happened. I feel a little bit better now. That's
Yeah.
good. And you just let it progress. Because for me, yeah, I don't think the answers, if you got to a point where you had to have a breakdown, that took a while to build up, and maybe the answer will too.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't. Maybe you're going to look at things like I keep referencing this quote, like not to quote myself. Well, yeah, to quote myself because it's my best quote ever. Of how you can't see the room until your back's against the wall. I'm obsessed with that because it really
Oh,
is true.
so
Where you're
good.
just like, I just see things differently now. I see a bigger picture,
I have never
and
heard you say that. That is so
yes, I said
good.
it in the Revolution episode.
You did?
Yeah, we freaked out about it because it's so good.
Wait, that's so good.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about it all the time because I
Well,
said
you know
that
what?
and I was like,
Healing and memory are both not linear, so I'm
you.
fine. And
Good
nothing's
thing
wrong
it's
with my brain.
recorded. I'll play it. I'll send you a clip.
That's yeah. Please do. Please do. Send me a link.
But I do feel
That's
like
so
while
good.
you're, yeah, you're in the middle of this. Usually a breakdown, a revolutionary thing is going to happen. Your back's against the wall. You can see the whole room. You can see what's not working. And you can look around and be like, okay, this is broken. Either I need to fix it or I need to leave this room
Yeah.
because, and that's your choice. And I think that's something to explore and to see like, okay, if I keep continuing doing the things that I'm doing, am I going to have to go back into this dark place again? Do I want that? Is it worth that?
Yeah.
And those are important questions to ask. And also just like, yeah, when something big happens, and this is how my life has been since I got married earlier this year, of thinking like, who do I want to be? There's always been this like little version of myself that I've dreamed of, or like, I have like my little fantasies on the school bus in high school or like on the subway. And I like imagine myself doing different things. And now I'm like, oh, do it.
Yeah.
Just do that. Just go be
Yeah.
her. That's fine.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
What the fuck else are you doing? So I think like there's just like there's exciting times too where you can start to think about like, okay, the runway has cleared. We just maybe discovered something that does not work. We can cross
Mhm.
that off the list and now do something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we don't have to, it doesn't have to be for anyone except for yourself. And you could just rebuild it because here we are and this is your life and you
Mm,
should do what feels good to you, what is sustainable.
I love that. Yeah. I'm very interested to see, what this next phase for me looks like. And I think one thing that I'll say, and I guess this is to anyone who's going through it, um, a piece of advice that you gave me at the beginning of all this, and also that my therapist gave me was do not focus on the outcome. That's not the
Mm,
point. The outcome, like, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter. The point of this is what you're doing. It's now. It's who you're turning into, how you're growing, and what you're growing through, and how you're becoming this new person. It's not about the outcome. And
totally.
that that is kind of the point. Like, it's not about the outcome. And so, yes, you can get to that point where, like, okay, I can create the life that I want, but that is immaterial. It's kind of not like, yes, of course, there are things like, oh, I want to be that girl, or, whatever. I want to do, whatever things. But it's kind of, it's immaterial in the way that, like, it's more about who you are. And that is less tangible in some ways. Like, the point of it is what you're learning. It's what you're learning, how you're growing, how you respond to things, and how you move forward. And I think this is
Totally.
not to say, like, what it is and what it isn't, but I think for me personally, like, I have to detach from the outcome, and I've
Well,
had
because
to
the outcome's
detach
not
from the
real.
outcome. Right, right. And I have no control over it also.
Yeah.
I have
And
no control
anything
over
could
it.
impact it. And also, the
Yep.
outcome will probably, even if it were to come true, it would
Yeah.
last for like 5 minutes and then some other shit would happen. And then
Yeah.
now you have to make another outcome. Let's do which work. Who has
Yeah.
time?
And it's not that, and that's not the point. The point is
Mm
for me to become the person that I'm meant to be, my truest, wholest self.
hmm. Mm
And
hmm.
that's key.
And
I'm
using
learning in
everything
this
to get there.
life. Yeah,
Mm hmm.
exactly. I'm learning in this life what I'm meant to, and this is what I asked for.
Mm
So,
hmm.
I just try to remind myself of that.
I
But I
love
think
that.
that's really, really important. And yeah.
Wait, there was another thing. I was on the phone with my sister a couple of weeks ago, and it's really similar to the thing I was saying earlier, but I think this is a good way to cut or the end this part of the conversation. But I was talking to my sister about this thing, and I was like, oh my God, I've been trying to heal this piece of myself for so long. And I just realized that I can't do it because it's still happening. And I
Mm,
was like, it's never going to end. And then literally 2 hours later, I was like, oh my God, it never ends.
yeah.
You answer the question forever. And I just think that is such a liberating thought to have, where
Yeah.
it's like, this is not meant to be cleaned up neatly and locked up, put a bow on, and you can put it in your museum of healed items. It's
Yeah.
you. Like, it will
Yeah.
continue forever and the story will change and something will happen that will feel completely disconnected from this big pain that you're in, but it will be
Yes.
connected and you'll see that in 20 years and you'll be like, I
Yes.
only recognize that because of what happened to me 20 years ago because it's always ongoing.
This is so interesting. And I know we've talked a bit recently about parts work, but
Mm-hmm.
I heard recently, like, okay, trauma you can contain,
Mm-hmm.
trauma you can, like, you know, do something with, and like get your life back, you can contain it. But parts can't be contained. They're you. They don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
contained. They want to be integrated, but only when they're ready, and they're still going to be there, and they should be there because, they're a part of you. They love you. They're doing everything in your best interest, what they think is your best interest, but a lot of times it's not. So those don't ever go away. It is you. It's you. And, like, but something that happened to you, not how you responded to it, but the thing that happened, that can be healed from, contained, whatever that looks like. But the part
Totally.
is there. That's you.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I just wanted to bring up this. Well, Claire does internal family systems in real life in therapy.
In
I
therapy, yes.
don't. It
And
comes up in my
EMDR.
therapy, but it's not specifically focused on that. But I did get this book called the Self Led Internal Family Systems Workbook, and it's blowing my mind. And it's the most validating thing in the world. So
Yep.
just wanted to plug that
Yep.
for no reason, but for healing.
That.
But it did make me think this whole thing, or knowing that we were going to talk about this just because we needed a natural continuation from our last half episode. Um, we were talking through what we think should be talked about regarding breakdowns. And we came up with this piece that I think is going to be a good reminder. I'm probably just going to like print this out and tape it like next to my bed. So if on any day I feel like crashing out, I'll be like, okay, here's how to do it ethically with care. Because your breakdown should not cause harm to yourself or others. It's not that helpful because then after the breakdown, you got to do a lot of repairing and you might not want to do that. So
Yeah.
it'll save you time to just be, a little better, not be less reckless, not project, not ghost everybody or hurt people just because you're hurting. That's so cliched.
It's interesting because like my breakdowns previously, I've definitely hurt people for sure in my life, like for sure. But I was always really focused on keeping it internal, keeping my pain very internal. And it still spiraled outwards, like for sure. Like I think about, I was so shut down and emotionally closed off for so many years. And I'm just starting to experience more of a thaw there. But like that hurt people for sure, like a lot. And I've done acute things during this, breakdown period that have definitely been harmful to myself and others, mostly others. And nothing that can't be undone or apologized for. But like, I think that my learning is like, oh, okay, just if you're trying not to hurt other people and you end up just hurting yourself way more, you're still going to hurt other people.
So
like,
true.
It's not altruistic. It's not like, it's the point of that is good. I get it. But like, just the more grace you can give yourself, the better. The better to do what you need to do. And like, not make any, I don't know, decisions. You said something about like not communicating about it. Like don't talk about your learnings until you've learned them. Like
I used to be that way. I would not tell anyone I was having a problem until I figured it out.
Yeah. Yes.
Which there is no virtue in that. It did not help anyone. It made it take longer, and I was a bitch while I was figuring it out. So
Yep. I've been there.
Wasn't that good?
But I've also done oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to word vomit everything. And I have no idea what's happening. I like can't stop it from coming out of my mouth because I feel so lost and confused and I have no idea what this is. That was not helpful either because I didn't know what I was saying and I didn't know where it was coming from. And it was like this compulsory, like I just have to get it out because I'm so confused. And the way to do that is with a mental health professional.
Totally. Well, okay. So I wrote down a couple of things. Yes. Yeah. I wrote down a couple of things here for how to do this, how to have a breakdown without causing too much collateral damage. Because that's not what you want. You want things to be fixed.
Is this going to be your first published work? How to have a breakdown.
Yes. Honestly, that's brilliant.
I love it.
Copyright 2025. Yep. Number one, name what's happening. If it's, I'm not doing well, I'm going crazy, I'm going to say a whole bunch of shit right now because I can't figure it out. I need to either one, ask around or identify the professional friend, family member that is available for that type of conversation, or get a really big journal. Until you could narrow it down a little bit because, I think that brings me to another one on this list, which is to not use friends as therapists, not to use your lovers as Band-Aids, and to ask for a presence from people and kind of figure out what you need. One good thing that I did, this was in like 2015. I was about to go through a breakup and I wrote down all of these things. Like we hadn't broken up yet, but I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And I wrote down a long list of like who I'm calling, who's available for different types of support, what I'm not supposed to do, things that will make me feel better. And then when we broke up, like a month or two later, I like left her in the room that we were in and like ran into the other room and like looked at my phone and I was like, okay, great. okay, I need to
Yeah.
call this person now. Like I had already made a plan. And I think that's a good thing to do when you're not mid breakdown
Yeah.
and just try to like figure out who the people are. And if there's no one, get to work, go on Bubble BFF,
Mm, yes.
find someone who's good for this because you
Yeah.
need people. Healing is so much easier in community. But I just
Yeah.
thought that was a big one because sometimes you can use people in the wrong way or like make them, we've all been there. And I don't really know if this is right, but it
Yeah.
happened to me before. Actually, same breakup. I talked about this girl for like a year and a half. And some of my friends were like, oh my God, get over it. And I was like, no. And
Yeah.
then other friends were available for it. So, you know, you never
Yeah.
know, but you just have to kind of sift through
Yeah.
who's available
And
for what you need.
yes, absolutely. And also like make sure they can handle it, but make sure you're getting your needs met. Like
Mm-hmm.
both, right? Like I my mom has been a lifeline for me through this period, and so have you. And I have had like a lot of really wonderful people. This isn't going to be an Oscars speech where I thank everybody on my team, but it's I've felt very loved and supported. I do need more friends in my where I live now because it's I'm in the Santa Ynez Valley, and I
Well, you
just
have
talked to
horses. You can
yeah,
talk
I
to
know.
them.
I just talked to the horses, and it's beginning to cause some issues. But they're just getting a little sick of me. But
Yeah.
I you know I I have checked in with my mom, and I when I had the bandwidth too, because during the acute moments I did not. But I was like, "Are you okay? Like, can you handle this?" And my mom's like, "Yes. Like I birthed you. You're fine. Like I can
Yeah.
handle this." But
That's nice.
I've just wanted to make sure that she's like, and the one thing she's said that she just keeps saying, she's like, I just wish I could take away the pain and let you keep the wisdom because
It's so beautiful.
this is I know this is so needed for you. And
Mm-hmm.
but it's so painful. And
Yeah.
just even having like what I've needed from my mom is just her being there. That's it. And
Mm-hmm.
but saying things like that also helps. But it's not like I would also say to people who are supporting others in a breakdown, you've said some pretty poignant things to me that have really helped, but like it's it's a good thing to just say like, "Hey, how can I support you? Like what
Mm-hmm.
do you need from me?" And like then you evaluate, "Oh, do I have capacity for that?" Great. Because sometimes it's
I
not helpful when people are like, "Here are solutions." And you're like, "I'm
totally,
not there." Like
totally.
at all.
No, I think it's really interesting because I don't like this thing that came on the internet a couple of years ago that people are
Mm.
just like, hey, do you have space for, do you, I forget what it is. Like, do you have the bandwidth to like listen
Yeah,
to me right
bandwidth.
now?
Bandwidth
No,
is the word.
I hate stuff like that. I hate like corporate speaking to your trusted confidants. That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
I
no.
feel like that is, I don't expect, Claire is, if Claire's having a breakdown and comes and speaks to me about it, I don't expect you to have the
So the
forethought.
written proposal that I sent you prior to me coming to you with this was not necessary. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I could just say like, "Hey, actually, I'm in the middle of something right now, but we could talk later," which I would never say because
Yeah.
you got to find yappers. If you can't go on Reddit, people do it all the time. I actually like to read them and be like, "What would I say?" But
Yeah.
I really like to be in these conversations because for me, what I like is to just hear what my loved ones are going through. And if I hear you
Yeah.
talking yourself to the end of a cliff or the end of a thought where it's like you're going to get locked there, pushing you back into the center.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is like the more I feel like that's what I usually need. So that's usually what I give out of just a reminder that there are other ways to look at something.
Yeah.
And
That's huge.
I think that's really special because that also brings me to another point that I have here. And this is something I've been very guilty of that I hope that people can start being cognizant of and avoiding, which is avoid defining your truth in your lowest moments
Mm.
where you feel terrible and all of a sudden you're like, all of this is a lie. All of this is not real.
Yeah.
The whole story looks different now.
Yeah.
It might feel different and there might be some truths in what you're saying, but you don't need to convince yourself that your bad feelings are the true ones because it's almost never true.
Yeah. Yeah. Framing your life around this is just what my life is now. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is my truth. Like, I would also say, yes. I mean, that's really, really important. But I have found like the only thing I was able to do was just get through it, was just
Mm-hmm.
be in it and like do what occurred to me in front of me, which
Mm-hmm.
was just trying to focus on osmosis. I mean, really, like that was what I could do. Um, you know, there are so many things that it's like, okay, recognizing, yes, I will have my truth later, but I don't know what it is right now is so important. And like I was able last week to kind of start naming a couple things and be like, oh, interesting. That's new and that's interesting. But it was very it was a very slow process getting there because and other people kept telling me, like I kept hearing my parents, God love them, were, like this is you are going to be better for this. You're going to, be more yourself after this. This is growing pains. And I didn't believe it. I was like, because it didn't feel true. And nothing
Mm-hmm.
felt true. The only thing that felt true was that I was in pain. That was it.
Yeah.
And
You
that
should feel that and
was
you should move through it, but you don't need to like build your house there and be like,
exactly.
I'm Claire. I live in pain.
Yes. Life is
Pain is
pain.
my truth.
Could you imagine me though, like getting really, really emo and like
Yes, I immediately pictured you, but as the cover of the Evanescence album with like the
that's
makeup.
exactly what I was thinking. That is I can't even. Oh my God. Wake me up.
Oh
Wake me up.
my-
That's such a good song. Oh
I'm
my
gonna
God.
listen to it as soon as we
I'm
get
gonna
off.
I same. Yeah. That's really, really, really good. But yeah,
uh,
that maybe next
okay,
podcast. New character unlocked. Black
literally.
eyeshadow. I love it.
I love that too. But I think, yeah, I think all of these things being said, these are just like things that you can reflect on after you've crashed out a certain amount of times. I am probably on the leaderboard somewhere. But I think one other final piece that I have, I don't know if you have any more, but just to remember if you didn't do any of these things and you didn't have a graceful breakdown, not that that's like a real thing anyway, but if you did cause harm to yourself or others, you need to go back to it when you're done.
Yeah.
Because that's from my experience that when something happens, it's out of your control. You feel sorry, but you're embarrassed. Like you don't know how to fix it. So you just don't. And then you just let it follows you and it lets like the beautiful stuff that's trying to come out get tainted by this thing that you did. So
Yeah.
I would say really practice apologizing without performing it, naming what happened, stop hiding. This whole thing that we've been talking about this whole time is when you're having these painful times is that you're getting closer to the truer version of yourself, and hiding and being ashamed of what happened is blocking you from getting there.
Yes.
So let yourself be a messy apologizer. It doesn't usually go wrong. People don't do it that much. So be
Yeah.
crazy, like start saying sorry. It's
I'm
really
just
fun.
I'm just cracking up thinking about me writing a notes app apology to the people/person that I need to apologize to and posting it like cryptically on my only social media, which is like LinkedIn. Like, I'm so sorry
We'll
to
never
my
get work again. Or maybe we
that's
will.
we oh my God. I would not trust any of those clients if they saw that and were like, "Ooh, I trust this person. They seem stable and good." Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, apologize and that's okay. Like that's okay. But I will also say, like what you were saying, it's okay to wait to do that
Oh,
until
yeah.
you've like calmed down. Like get your
Mm-hmm.
house in order before you go knock on anyone else's door.
So true.
That's important. And just yeah, I would say that that's very important.
And you can tell that we are super real about this because this podcast is called Often Wrong. So people who are often wrong do have to apologize. But that is a pathway to freedom.
That's
I'll
the
tell you
point.
what.
Yep. Yep. And it's
We're
not
all just still
apologizing for
bouncing
who
out.
you are ever.
Right.
It's apologizing for what you did or what you said.
Imagine, I bet, I wonder, I thought that maybe I was like alone in this my whole life, but now that I'm an adult, I don't think that I am. I think that what everyone wants is to be super honest, to be seen and appreciated, even when you're at your worst behavior. But then you can have these kind of conversations where you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't feel good and I did that. I'm so sorry. And
Yeah.
people will be like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's the most beautiful. That makes me want to weep, actually. So I think
Forgiveness.
I'm assuming that that's what everybody wants. And if they don't want that, they shouldn't be my friend. But I
Amen.
think that that's really special. And it's just such a fun thing. When you think about a big picture like that, you're like, oh, every time I make a step, even if it's messy or it's wrong or it's chaotic or it's in the middle of a breakdown, I'm like getting closer to that,
Yeah.
creating that thing. That's so
That's really
fun.
beautiful. Yeah. I'm on that note, I'm really interested in when I have bandwidth, not to use the B word, um, to listen to it. I've done like some self compassion stuff, and I talked about this Dr. Kristen Neff before on the podcast.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot there with self compassion, self forgiveness. Like I think there's probably I would say that shows up in most breakdowns. I don't mean to be prescriptive, but I imagine there's an element of that for everyone at some point in that path. But look into that. Tara Brock has a great podcast, and I have some episodes bookmarked that I need to listen to. But so I have nothing
I
to say
love
about
that.
that yet. But I think that will help. I think that will help. Self forgiveness and self compassion.
I
Very
love that.
important things.
You know, this convo's a little all over the place, but that's okay because that's what the topic is. So
Yeah.
I love that. I think, yeah, I think the whole point of all of this is the goal is never to try to break down perfectly. It's to just fall
Yes.
apart in a way that allows you to come back more whole,
Yes.
not prettier, not more efficient, not better, but just more true.
Yes.
And
More who you are, more whole.
I don't know. There's something to that that feels super revolutionary. The more that each of us as individual people can really commit to being more honest with ourselves and to each other in like a micro level,
For
that
sure.
everything will have to change once that happens or
I
as it's happening.
I will I will say, and I think there's a tangent here that I've already kind of I'm like out on the end of the diving board and like waving back at the group on the tennis courts. But I always think about like, wow, imagine, hurt people hurt people. Like imagine
Hmm.
if violent dictators did therapy. Like they're not good with themselves. Like
No.
that's and maybe the therapy wouldn't work, but like if everybody got good with themselves and loved themselves and became their truest version, I think the amount of truly evil people is like a handful,
Well, they
relatively
wouldn't
speaking.
need so much money if they had the
Mm,
wealth of self love and respect.
true. True.
Priceless.
Yes. But it starts there. Anything, any social justice, any movement, any good thing that you could, conceive of, start at home. Start in you.
So true. Also, this is like the same thing that happened. I know people use this metaphor all the time, but like when you're on the airplane and it's like put your own mask on first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, self care, take care of yourself first so you can, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. But I think it's so much deeper than that, where it's like the quality. It's not even just to look out for yourself and make sure that you don't die while you help other people. It's just the quality of the care that you will be able
Yeah.
to offer is so much better if it's already the care that you have practiced on yourself.
Oh, so well said.
Thank you.
Oh my God. That's so well said. Already the care that, wow, that's really good. I also hate it that like you say something really good and I'm always just like, wow, that was so good. I never have
I
anything
love
intelligent
that.
to
That's my favorite
say
part.
back to it. Well, good. But it makes for bad clips because it's just me reacting positively to you. And I'm not saying anything new. I'm just like, wow, good job. Good job with language.
Thank you.
Um, but
I
that
am
that
older
is
than
really
you.
resonant. Yeah. Well,
I'm the wiser. I'm the elder in the room.
God, I
But you bring the
feel
new, fresh ideas of the young people.
yeah, I'm the resident Gen Z on staff, so
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm clearly so in touch on and online. I know everything that's going on.
We
So
do it differently here.
yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest curmudgeon that's ever existed.
You're an
So
old soul Gen Z, and I am a chronically online millennial. So
yeah, it's beautiful.
it is
It's
beautiful.
beautiful. It
We really
works.
cover a lot of bases.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for listening, and it's good to be back. We will be back with more episodes to finish out our season. And we'll
Tell us
talk
about
to
your
you later.
breakdown and if you got
Tell us
anything
about your
wrong.
breakdown.
I want
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. In the comments section, air all your personal shit, please.
And if it makes you feel any better, I know at least 27 people who are currently mid breakdown. So it's not just you. It's okay.
Cosmically, this is a year of breaking down.
But also, if you
So
look around at the world, and even just if you look at the US and just look at the government, I'm surprised more people aren't having breakdowns right now. It is super valid. It's just, let's unite.
yeah.
Let's unite
Yeah.
together.
Just take care of yourselves and yeah, take care
And
of
our break's
yourself.
over. So we'll be back next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Often Wrong is produced by Lisa Nwankwo, Claire Cornetta, and Joe Abdella. This episode was shot and edited by Joe Abdella. Special thanks to Michael Drummonds. Often Wrong is a Carrot Impact podcast. Go to carrotimpact.com/oftenwrong to learn more.